On the broadcast tonight, Japan's 2 lost decades of economic growth. Korea is at risk of following that path, according to Korea's finance minister, who emphasizes the need to save the Korean economy from its current low growth trap. 1 week to go until Koreans head to the polls for the July 30th by-elections. From the campaign trail to voter sentiment, we take an in-depth look into what many are calling a mini general elections. And major American and European airlines suspend air service to the Tel Aviv airport after a Hamas rocket lands about 1.6 kilometers from Israel's Ben Gurion airport. Early edition begins now.
I see trees of green, red roses.
늘 남편 먼저,
I see them
늘 자식 먼저.
for me and
레이디 퍼스트라는 말을 믿고 살아온 당신. 오늘만큼은 세상 누구보다 당신이 먼저입니다. 한 분 한 분 특별하게 모시겠습니다.
Excellence in Flight, Korean Air.
It is 5 a.m. in New York, 11 in Tel Aviv, and 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the 23rd of July here. Live from Seoul, I'm Gurion.
And I'm Daniel Chen. Thank you for joining us. We begin with a strong warning out of the finance ministry.
Should the Korean economy stay the course, it could face a situation similar to Japan's 20 years of lost growth. And that's according to Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan earlier this Wednesday morning, stressing the need for bold and aggressive monetary policy.
In the first meeting between the government and the ruling party since his appointment earlier this month, Choi raised concerns about the combination of this economy's slowed growth, mounting household debt, and aging population. He pledged to introduce measures to address these challenges and call for parliamentary support in approving a series of economy-related bills stuck in the National Assembly. The ruling party floor leader vowed to work towards that goal.
And the Korean government is expected to lay out its economic policy direction for the latter half of this year sometime this week. And Finance Minister Choi has numbers to prove it, at least in terms of Korea becoming an aging society. The nation's labor market is aging and aging very fast.
According to Statistics Korea, the number of workers aged 60 and over stood at 3.6 million in the second quarter, and that's up more than 5.5% from a year earlier. It's also 29,000 higher than the number of workers in their 20s.
Right, and the Statistics Agency attributes the new trend, a first since related data began being compiled in 1963, to the aging of Korea's population and older workers seeking employment to pay the bills post-retirement. Well, it's a trend that also extends to different age brackets. The number of workers in their 50s surpassed those in their 30s in the first quarter. And no wonder Koreans remain rather bearish about the economy looking ahead to the second half of the year. In a consumer confidence study conducted by research firm Nielsen on 60 different countries, Korea scored a paltry 53, just a few notches above the lowest country on the survey, Portugal.
A score above 100 shows optimism and positivity in the areas of jobs, personal finances, and spending intentions. Japan had a score of 73 and China 111. The country with the highest consumer confidence level was India at 128.
It's a well-established fact that Korea is a heavily export-driven economy, and almost a quarter of its total exports go to a single country, China. But not only is Asia's fourth largest economy becoming even more dependent on the Chinese economy in terms of exports, China is also quickly penetrating into other economic sectors here, to the concern of many analysts. Our Hwang Ji-hye takes a look at different areas of the Korean economy where a heavy Chinese presence can be spotted.
Korea's Myeongdong shopping district is a beehive of activity at all hours of the day, and that activity is driven more and more by Chinese customers these days.
We have more Chinese customers than Koreans because there are a lot of tourists here. They also buy far more products than local residents because they're cheaper here than in China.
And the amount of money Chinese tourists spent in Korea on credit cards shot up over 80% last year to around 3.8 trillion won, or roughly $3.7 billion from the same period a year ago. That's almost half of what all foreigners spent in Korea. Chinese investors have also taken a greater interest in Korea. They funneled more than $1.3 billion into Korea's securities market from December last year through May this year. That's the largest amount of any country. Experts, however, point out the risks of too much Chinese capital flowing into the country.
Chinese investors could have speculative purposes when coming into the Korean market, and if that money exits the country all at once, it could have a major negative impact on the local market.
In terms of exports, which is Korea's traditional growth engine, China's hold on the domestic economy grows even stronger. Last year, China took up almost 60% of Korea's trade surplus, while that figure stood at less than 8% in 1998. Experts add that it's important for Korean companies to continue improving their products and services so they can keep on attracting Chinese customers and their money. 황지혜, Arirang News.
And it looks like we'll have stronger trade relations or financial or economic relations with China in the future because Korea's Shinhan Bank and the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China has begun directly trading their local currencies this week, which is a very significant first step towards establishing a broader won-yuan direct trading market. Our Kim Ji-yeon tells us how this is expected to benefit traders on either side of the West Sea.
Just an hour car ride away from the capital city of Seoul, there's a factory in the city of Gumpo owned by KCC Incorporated, a machine manufacturer based in Korea. This factory agreed to deliver its products to its Chinese partners worth more than $1.4 million in the coming months.
We want to start paying in the yuan when we do business in China, since it will cut down our costs. But what we're concerned of, as a small and mid-sized company, is possible risk incurred due to a sudden fluctuation of the yuan. We have more information when trying to predict the value of the US dollar compared to that of the yuan.
Only about 1% of Korean companies currently settle their trading bills with their Chinese partners using the Chinese currency. 027 Incorporated, a Korean clothing manufacturer for toddlers, is one of them. With sales of around $236 million last year and more than 200 stores across China, the company has been making payments in the yuan for the past 3 years.
We currently save company payments by 1% every year by paying in the yuan. We asked our Korean subcontractors at the early stages of the contract to use the yuan and they agreed to it.
The company says it has not yet experienced any currency risk stemming from the sudden fluctuation of the value of the yuan, which is partly pegged to foreign currencies selected by the Chinese government. But it suggests Beijing could do more to raise transparency by sharing its financial policies and vision so that more business entities will want to trade in its currency. The global trade volume settled in the yuan amounted to 4.6 trillion yuan, or $741 billion last year, and was one of the most used currencies in the world. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
We shift our focus to the ongoing Seoul investigations. The authorities charged with tracking down the fugitive owner of the sunken Seoul ferry are coming under heavy criticism after it turned out that Yoo Byung-eun, the man they had spent a fortune scouring the country for, had been laying dead in a secluded orchard right under their noses. Taking 40 days to confirm the badly decomposed body was that of the 73-year-old billionaire, add to their questionable competency. Our Park Ji-won reports on how the police and prosecution are under fire for their poor investigation.
Yoo Byung-eun's body was first brought to the attention of police in Korea's southwestern city of Suncheon on June 12th. The location is critical as this is the last place the 73-year-old fugitive was seen alive at the end of May. The city and its surrounding areas had been the focal point of the manhunt. But despite this, police failed to consider the body might be that of Yu Byung-an. Police say they couldn't make the seemingly simple connection because the body had already severely decomposed and it was proving hard to recover fingerprints. It doesn't stop there, however, as there are other factors adding to the criticism that the police wasted precious time and resources searching for a dead man. The body was wearing an expensive Italian jacket and had a cloth bag with the phrase "Love Like a Dream" stitched on it, which is the title of Yu's book. Since the identity of the body was confirmed to be Yu, the head of the local police station, which first received word about the body, has been relieved of his duties. Prosecutor General Kim Jin-tae has also ordered an investigation into why it took nearly 40 days to confirm Yu's identity and on whether there were any problems in the process. The lack of police-prosecutor coordination is also coming in for criticism. Prosecutors reissued an arrest warrant for Yu on Monday after the previous 6-month warrant expired. However, it wasn't until Tuesday that the news broke out that the police found the body, meaning prosecutors didn't know about its existence until Monday. Meanwhile, the nation's financial authority has begun proceedings to impose massive penalties against several financial institutions and dozens of executives and company officials who had granted bad loans to the Yu family or his ailing companies. The Financial Supervisory Service has just completed its special investigation on some 30 institutions, and the penalties will be dished out in the fall. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And we are just getting word that the prosecution says it's found 160,000 US dollars in cash along with 830 million won, or the equivalent of more than 800,000 US dollars at Yu Byung-an's vacation home not too far from where his dead body was discovered.
Now, just 1 week to go until Koreans head to the polls for the July 30th by-elections in this country. 15 parliamentary seats are up for grabs, the largest number of vacant assembly seats in Korean history.
And it's time for the rival parties to brace themselves for the big day, as well as the 2-day early voting period that starts this Friday. Our political correspondent Kim Young-gil joins us in the studio with the details.
All right, Myung-gil, good evening to you. So how are the races shaping up?
Well, good evening. Well, July by-elections are just around the corner, and all 15 constituencies are being contested by the rival parties. 6 are in Seoul and Gyeonggi-do province, 2 in the Gyeongsang-do provinces, conservatives' home turf, 4 in the Jeollado provinces, traditional home ground of liberal parties, and the remaining 3 are in the Chungcheong-do provinces. If we take a look at the candidates, the ruling Saenuri Party has fielded candidates in all 15 constituencies, while the main opposition, New Politics Alliance for Democracy, fielded 14. Of all the races, Seoul's Dongjak-bi district is garnering the most attention, as it is the only by-election race in the capital. Another being closely watched is the Suwon-si district, in which former opposition party leader Son Hak-gyu is running. If he wins, he may well compete in the 2017 presidential election.
Well, I believe we have some questions from Gurion.
Right. So which party has the upper hand?
Well, currently it's hard to predict a clear winner. Well, political analysts say that both rival parties failed to come up with viable solutions in the wake of April's Ferry tragedy, and that both parties have been experiencing internal struggle and playing dirty politics.
President Park Geun-hye's administration failed to win the support of the people as it struggled with appointing members for the new cabinet, and the main opposition party has shown political controversies when fielding candidates.
Every by-election is seen as a midterm evaluation of the incumbent government, but experts say both parties are failing to draw in voters, so the July by-elections may not prove to be a strong barometer of public sentiment.
Well, they say all is fair in love, war, and, of course, politics. They are going to pull out all the stops, including, of course, playing dirty will be in the repertoire. Myung-gil, there's been a full-blown row among rival parties over the candidates. Could you fill us in on that?
That's right, Daniel. Just this week, the main opposition party, the leadership has been accused of nominating a former police officer known as Kwon Eun-hee, who's had been a problem-riddled past to run for Gwangju's Gwangsangbi constituency. She has been linked to a string of wrongdoings ranging from plagiarism and perjury.
Right now, I think the fact that the opposition party isn't doing so well, is a lot of it has to do with the people becoming very sort of concerned about the Kwon Eun-hee and the legitimacy of her candidacy. I think that's going to play a big role for this election.
The professor went on to say that the ruling Saenuri party will continue to drive focus on this issue, and the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy will be left with no choice but to provide some kind of rebuttal.
Well, Myung-gil, with the main opposition, apparently being backed up against the wall, it seems coming up with a unified candidate could be a solution or an option for them. Would that raise their chance of winning?
Well, Kanyang Pundit said it could play a big factor in raising the chances of winning in the districts. But even as we saw today, the opposition candidates for this whole Dongjakbi district, they failed to make a compromise in order to come up with a unified front. And just with a week left to go, chances are quite slight.
If they were able to come up with a unified candidate, a unified front, form a unified front in these districts, perhaps in Dongjakul and Suwon-jung, that's Yeongtong, that could have made some difference. But right now, it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
The professor noted that one interesting aspect is the future of the main opposition party's co-leader, An Chol-soo. After the election, he said if the opposition party does not do as well as they hope, then An's status within the party will likely weaken because he'll be held responsible.
Let's talk about voter turnout. I know the people are generally quite tired and unimpressed with the strategies the campaigners had to come up with this time. What will their strategies be for the remaining days to come?
Well, Daniel, the voter turnout will be low this time around to maybe around the 30% level, due in part to voters getting over the local elections just a month ago, and also it being the summer vacation season. And with just a week left, political observers say rival parties will focus on emphasizing the capabilities of their candidates.
The ruling party will likely focus on advertising their candidates' capabilities to work for their districts, while the main opposition party will continue to emphasize that President Park Geun-hye's administration must be judged through this by-election.
Well, it sure seems like we'll have to wait and see next week, next Wednesday, on what the Korean people's verdict will be on the government's, I suppose, post-ferry disaster management or measures for that ferry disaster. All right, Myung-gi, thank you so much for today.
Sure.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online, connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gon-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Now, Korea and Japan held talks in Seoul on the Japanese military's forced sexual enslavement of women before and during World War II today. And it marks the first such meeting since Tokyo released the results of its review of the Kono Statement, in which the Japanese government apologized for its wartime atrocities. The Korean government was expected to issue a formal complaint in Japan's review and then once again call on Tokyo to compensate the victims of forced sexual enslavement. The two sides may also discuss the possibility of a ministerial-level meeting which could take place next month on the sidelines of the ASEAN Regional Forum in Myanmar. Two Korean victims of the Japanese military sexual enslavement of women during World War II have set out on a mission all the way in the U.S. to spread awareness about the highly emotive issue. Their first stop was to a statue in California that commemorates the women, a small memorial that a group of Japanese Americans would like to see removed. But as our UDN reports, the ladies will be fighting back.
When they were in their teens, Yuk-sun and Kang Yu-chul were forced to serve as sex slaves at Japanese, quote, comfort stations or military brothels. Today, they are reaching out to make sure their story isn't forgotten. In a press briefing in Los Angeles, the two ladies, now both in their 80s, emphasized they don't have much time left and repeated a decades-old call to the Japanese government to issue a fresh apology.
It's as if the Japanese government is putting off apologizing and is just waiting for us to all die, but we must receive an apology. I will never forget that we've had to go through this, and I will repay what I've had to go through even after I die.
Lee and Gang also expressed appreciation for a statue dedicated to the women put up in the city of Glendale, California, and offered support to keep it there. A group of Japanese Americans sued the city back in February, demanding the statue be removed. The city of Glendale is fighting back.
The next step will be for the court to decide the motion to dismiss, and hopefully the court will agree with us that the city of Glendale has the right to express its respect.
The two ladies will continue on their journey, which will take them to the East Coast and other monuments put up in memory of all those who suffered under Japan's institutionalized sexual slavery in Virginia and New Jersey. They'll also continue to hold out hope that the Japanese government issues a sincere apology and makes reparations to the few dozen victims who remain alive today. Gurion, Arirang News.
Now on to the latest in the Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 investigations. Bodies and the flight recorders from the ill-fated plane destroyed by a missile last week over eastern Ukraine were delivered safely from rebel control to a northeastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv on Tuesday. Dutch officials say about 200 of the 298 people on Flight 17 appeared to have been found so far and indicated there could be more bodies in the war zone. First group of remains is due to be flown to the Netherlands on Wednesday. The plane's black boxes, which were handed to Malaysian officials yesterday by the militants, are set to be flown to England for analysis. This as the European Union decides to expand sanctions against Russia. Meanwhile, U.S. intelligence officials say their analysis showed that rebels may have shot down the plane by mistake. In related news, major airlines have closed routes to Tel Aviv, this after a rocket assumed to have been fired by Hamas militants fell just 2 kilometers away from the city's main international airport. The death toll from the conflict now tops 630. Our Kim Min-ji has the details.
The grounding of flights came after a rocket landed just 1.6 kilometers away from the city's main air hub, Ben Gurion International Airport. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration has banned all American airliners from flying in or out of Tel Aviv for at least 24 hours beginning Tuesday U.S. time, and European aviation regulators strongly recommended a similar suspension. Israel called on the U.S. to lift the flight ban, saying the airport is safe, but Washington didn't budge, saying the government cannot overrule the FAA. Meanwhile, the conflict has now entered its third week, with Israel pounding Hamas targets in Gaza. The death toll of Palestinians has topped 630, including at least 100 children. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry were in the region to hold talks with leaders in hopes of finding a peaceful solution.
My message to Israelis and Palestinians is the same. Stop fighting. Start talking and take on the root causes of the conflict so we are not back to the same situation in another 6 months or a year.
And as for something that could potentially change the dynamics of the conflict, Israel confirmed that one of its soldiers was missing, raising the possibility that Hamas could use his return as a bargaining chip. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Well, time now to get a check on the weather conditions. And for that, let's go over to our Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Michelle, we didn't get as much monsoon rain as we had expected. And of course, that's bad news for me because I love rain. So can I expect more tonight?
Well, it's been raining on and off here in Seoul today, but we're expecting heavy showers tonight at and around midnight. And the rain has dropped down our high temperatures here in the central region quite a bit.
And I believe good news for you is that there's more rain in the forecast tomorrow, right?
That's right. The entire nation will see rain tomorrow, so its surrounding regions and the Chuncheon provinces can expect up to 20 to 60 millimeters of rain, while Gangwon-do and the rest of the southern regions can expect it up to 30 millimeters. Now, we can expect heavier rain tomorrow, like I said, through Sunday due to the influence of Typhoon Matmo, especially in the central region where up to 400 millimeters of rain could fall within a span of just 4 days. Now going over to our temperature readings, Seoul will start off the morning at 23 and reach up to 29 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will top out at 33 and 30 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops over to 30 as well. Dokdo hits 30 again, while Mount Kumgang tops out to 32. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you guys.
Thank you for that, Michelle. And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for watching. For our viewers in Korea, have a wonderful rest of the evening. This has been Daniel Che.
And I'm Moon Ganyang. To those of you in other parts of the world, have a great start to your day. And we hope to see you right back here same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.